Hello and welcome back. This is lesson 6 of the Mum's Taxi app. Now, I have a bit of advice, and this is based on some questions that people have been asking me recently, and that is, what is the scope for IT, especially coding and web design globally? In fact, somebody asked me this question yesterday, and the short answer is the scope is massive. It was already massive in the pre-COVID world, but in the post-COVID world, it's getting even bigger. So my advice to anybody that is still deciding on a career, if you have even the slightest inclination to IT and computers and coding, go for it. I mean, the scope is huge and the world has become even smaller now. And one of the drivers from now going forward will be the COVID pandemic. And the logic is very simple. A lot of businesses that were traditionally not online, they didn't do any online, due to the lockdowns, the global lockdowns, they decided that we need to be online also. And they started scrambling and looking for developers to develop solutions to take their businesses from offline into online mode. And they're going to need people to maintain those systems, to get them out there, to do digital marketing, to do graphic design. Now, speaking of coding, coming back to the Mum's Taxi app, up until yesterday, we built the front end of our app. We built the HTML part of the front end. Now, if you know anything about the front end of an app, it's made up of two parts. Well, three parts, but primarily two parts as far as the view is concerned. One is the HTML and the other is the CSS. Now, the HTML gives the structure. You can think of the HTML as the bricks and cement of your building, of your app. So you build this structure and you can see this brick and cement structure, but it's not yet livable. It's not yet usable because it's this dusty, dirty looking structure. But then you bring in your decorators, you bring in your interior decorators and your designers, and then you add on the plaster and the paint and the tiles and all the other beautiful things that make our house beautiful. And then that building becomes comfortable and livable. Now that's what CSS does. Now CSS, as the name suggests, cascades style sheets, add the style to our page. Now we're going to see how quickly our app starts transforming in its look. And today we're going to dive straight into CSS. So without any delays, let's get back into some CSS coding. So to start off with, we are going to go into style.css. So we click on that and it opens up in brackets. We're going to start by putting in what we call in CSS a selector. And this selector is called body, and we follow that up with curly braces. Now these are not round brackets, these are the curly brackets. All right, and then you hit enter, and then we're going to put some code inside there. But before that, what is this? What is going on here? This is known as a selector, and it selects the body tag from our HTML. Now let's look at the HTML. Back at index, there's your body tag. So basically, this section of our style sheet is targeting this section of our web page. So the reference is directly to the body section. So what are we going to do in here? The first thing we're going to do is to give it a background color. Now, the great thing about brackets is that when you just start typing something, it gives you some suggestions to complete typing. So you can simply select this one. We're going for background color. Instead of typing the whole thing, just simply click on it. Next, we put in a hash, and we're going to put in what is known as a hexadecimal code for a color. So we're giving it a background color, and this color will be 009788. And then we follow that up with a semicolon. Now, what color is this 009788? Let's look at our output. Now, when you look at the output of the complete app, it's this color here, this beautiful turquoise looking color. And you can actually see the color. When you hover over the color code in brackets, you can actually see the color popping up there. All right, so we've selected body and we've given it a background color of this beautiful turquoise. Now let's save this and refresh it in our browser. Back in the browser, we hit refresh and there we go. We've got the beautiful turquoise color now in our app. Next, we're going to focus on the font. So we're going to select font dash family and we're going to give this one a font family of Railway. This is one of my favorite fonts. Now notice this is in double quotes and notice the spelling. It's not R-A-I-L as you would normally spell railway. It's R-A-L-E. Okay, follow that with a comma and then the word sans serif and semicolon. Now before we test this, let's do one more thing. Text align and center. Now what do these two lines do? The first line, font family, I think you might have guessed by now, selects the font for our text, and text align center, well, I'm just not going to explain that, right? You know what that is. Okay, let's check that I've saved it. Whoops, I didn't save it. Let's go and refresh. Can you see the font has changed and everything is now beautifully centralized? Moving on, we're going to select color. Now notice we did background color there and we're doing another color here. This would be the foreground color. Now you can, just as you can use hexadecimal codes for your colors, you can also use color names. Certain common colors have names. So we're going to simply type in the name of this color, white. Now if you want to be really clever and use the hexadecimal code for white, then you'd simply use hash FFF, and that is the hexadecimal code for white. So you choose. You want to be simple, use white, the word white, and if you want to be a little geeky, then you can use the hex code. Last, we're going to add this margin, 0, and auto. Now this will make sure that there are no empty spaces around the edges of our app and the entire display is beautifully centered. So there we go. Beautiful, beautiful CSS. With so few lines, we've made such big changes to our app. Now we're going to stop here for today. I don't want to go too much into the CSS right now. I want you to get used to this. And I also want you to play around with these numbers and these values. Change the colors, change the background color, change the foreground color, change the font. You can Google up the different CSS fonts. Just do a Google search for CSS fonts. Pick another font, pick a different alignment, play around with the margin values, break things, see what it's like. I want you to experiment. I want you to get used to breaking things and then fixing them again. And if it breaks, don't worry. Come and watch the video again and start again. It's no train smash. The beauty of coding and the best learning you do in coding is by experimenting. So we'll stop there for today and I'll catch you in the next lesson.